This weather is set to make a complete transformation over the course of the next 7 days. So, we're going to break down the details for you in this update. So, if you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button to support the channel if you do enjoy detailed weather breakdowns. So, let's really get started, and you can follow along with the date up upper right hand corner of the screen. Here's a cold front, and that was the culprit of bringing some of that severe storms and all the heavier rains and across portions of Texas as well as into Oklahoma. Now that is shifting eastbound, and we are still in the warm sector. In fact, we have a tornado watch this morning across portions of the southeast, but we do have a warm front. You can see the warmer anomalies lifting, surging further north along the east coast. They're still under the warm sector with the instability, and that's going to still create all those showers and thunderstorms later on today into the evening time frame. You can see on the surface map what we're talking about, and that deeper shaded green, that is your heavier rain, and that's why they've had those flash flood watches in place with copious amounts of rain that's unloading across this region, and that will continue to live northbound. So know those areas into West Virginia, back into Ohio, eventually heading up to Pennsylvania deeper into the afternoon today. And then as we head through tomorrow, getting into Sunday, that will be impacting those areas into the northeast. So all those areas across portions of New England, some of that will actually change over to snow into portions of upstate New York, getting back into Vermont and New Hampshire, as well as into Maine. But you can see all the brown shaded area here. That is your drier air on the backside. And with those cooler anomalies, it's going to feel cooler than what you've experienced as of late. That'll be in the day on Sunday. So for a good part of the country, you are going to be experiencing a pretty nice day coming up on Sunday for your March the 10th. So as we transfer into Monday, there's that system moving offshore, right? So that will continue to move offshore up across the northeast. We do have the ridge starting to build back in across the central and upper 2/3 of the U.S. That's going to slowly start building back the warmth across the middle part of the country. But we are watching another significant trough that will be entering, diving down there from Western Canada into the West Coast. That's going to drop those cooler anomalies in the west again. So taking a look at the overall drought index here, we've made some massive dents over the last couple of months. One of the standouts is down here into Louisiana as well as into Mississippi. They've almost wiped out their drought almost completely. And of course, across the southeast, they don't need any more rain. Unfortunately, they are going to get it. And definitely portions of California, a good part of California, don't need any here. So what stands out is these areas across the Arizona and back into New Mexico and deep into West Texas, they desperately need some rain showers for them. But also those areas, because we are in an El Nino and the polar jet has been more or less kind of shut off, then those areas across Montana and well as into the Dakotas, through Minnesota, back into Wisconsin, especially there in Iowa there, where they are already into a severe as well as into an extreme drought. So these areas desperately need the rainfall. And I'm looking at areas, especially into Iowa, they're going to get some beneficial help in the week ahead. So let's break down this detail and kind of set it up for you. Here's the day on Tuesday. So as much of the country will start to be warming up in a big way again, we're going to watch that more significant trough going to be diving in across the west. So yes, those areas across Washington and Oregon again, especially along the coast there into Northern California, into the Bay region, more heavy rain for them. And in the interior regions with that trough digging in, we're going to be watching those elevated snow showers into the Intermountain West regions, impacting those areas across Idaho again, back into Montana, and eventually start to filter down into Utah. And you can see on Wednesday, as we get into the 13th time frame, I think that's going to be your warmest day of the week. So yeah, you'll have the ridge in place with that southwest wind for several days, really amplifying a good part of the central and eastern 2/3 of the U.S. with those well above average temperature anomalies, and fueling the atmosphere again with that dynamic trough that will be digging in out west and that will set the stage for more rounds of heavier rainfall and some severe storms, especially further south into the southern plains. So if you take a look at the overall upper level winds as we head into that Wednesday, you can start to see the dip again, right? So that pulls down some of that colder air. It starts to dig down there into southern California there. And as it ejects outward, it's going to send little pulses of energy out ahead of it, tapping into some of that warmer anomalies, and that destabilizes the atmosphere. And you've got the lift mechanism coming in out west. That will set the stage for some beneficial rains that should start to unload across those areas that desperately need it. Yes, I'm talking about you, Iowa. I think you're in a favorite area because the dew points start to lift further north, right? So we have dew points well into the 70s further south in the Brownsville region, into the 60s for a good part of Texas there. But all those areas in the green lifting into Kansas, back into Missouri, back into those areas into Illinois and Indiana and Ohio. But especially as we head further north into Iowa, you're in that soup kitchen, I like to call it. You're definitely in the moist sector. So as that low pressure center will be elongated just to your northwest, that should set the stage for some beneficial rains that will start to unload as we head into Thursday. And Thursday is going to be some big changes. We're going to be watching this pretty dynamic trough ejection coming in off the west coast, and those upper level winds are going to be screaming. So they'll send some pulses of energy out ahead of it on the northern branch, but the southern branch, there is going to be some shear associated with it. That would likely be set a renewed threat for more severe thunderstorms possibility. Even right now, the Storm Prediction Center does in fact highlight this area. It was enough to warrant with the ensemble guidance right now saying, hey, it's at least a slight risk for probability of some severe storms. So it's one of those situations that we kind of have to watch and fine tune in the days ahead, just like we saw last week with that Thursday type setup. And that's going to be moving through again on Thursday. So sometimes you get in these like 7-day cycles as the system clears out, and then it has time to regenerate and refuel the atmosphere, and then you have another system come in. So sometimes that can align with an overall 7-day cycle. And what's happening is on that northern branch, right? So you got that impulses of energy out ahead of it on Thursday on the northern side. Yes, that is all rain, folks, in Iowa. So that's definitely a welcome sign here. There's snow because we are going to have that colder shot coming in on the backside. So it should start to be snowing again in those areas into Wyoming, especially there into Colorado there. And then as this will continue to move across during the day, that's going to tap into the southern mode, tap into that warm anomalies down there in the Gulf of Mexico. That's causing that air to rise again, right? With that low pressure out west, that should set the stage for heavier rainfall that should be inundated across this region. And some of this could likely be severe, but look where the low pressure is further north up there into Minnesota. And that puts the bullseye there in Iowa. So she should see some, definitely some beneficial rains out ahead of it, especially when you look at the overall precipitable water index above normal. Yeah, those are darker greens. So that's definitely a welcome sign for these areas across the southern plains, into the central plains, but definitely those areas into Missouri, into Iowa, back into Illinois again, into Indiana, and heading up even into those areas into Michigan should start to see some rain showers. So you got the northern mode moving out. That's on Friday. With more heavy rain across portions of Missouri, back into Arkansas, as well as into western Tennessee, back into areas into Mississippi again. But look where the rain also unloads, because we are going to have that cold front sagging south, right? So I call it a cool front. So cool front sagging south. Yeah, that is snow in places into eastern Colorado, as well as into New Mexico. And these are definitely areas that are in a desperate drought. So yes, where the dry slot has been of late, it's definitely going to be changing as we head towards the middle of the month, with that cold front drifting all the way further south, and especially if we take a look at the teleconnections. And we talked about this in my March forecast, talking about the EPO going negative as we head towards the middle of the month, and that looks to be still the case as it takes a massive dive southbound. So instead of these roller coasters that we've been in over the last week or two with the system coming up, once this system goes through, that should bring those cooler anomalies, you know, for longer than a day or two in a lot of these areas. So as the EPO not only drops pretty far south, it actually continues to remain pretty far south for at least about a week. So once that cold front moves through into the central and eastern 2/3 of the US, you should be cooler for a while. So going into the day on Friday, there's the cold front, right? So we have the severe threat as of right now over portions of North Texas back into Central Texas. And with that cold front continue to shift further south, as we head into Friday, there's likely where the severe storms would likely unload again back into central Texas, into southeast Texas, move back in those areas into Louisiana, as well as into Mississippi and back into Alabama again with that rainfall. But with that front continue to push further south, and it looks to kind of stay around a while, right? That should likely just maybe stall or back up as a warm front. There's increased amount of precipitation back through those areas into West Texas, North and Central Texas, and through those areas across Louisiana, as well as into Mississippi and back into the southeast again. But further to the north, we've got that renewed shot, right? So the teleconnections continue to push further south. That's going to open the airways from Canada and allow some of that cooler air continuing to drip further south. And that's exactly what's going to happen further north and as we get towards that middle of the month. So heading into that 17th, going into next weekend, as that cold front will continue to shift, that will push all the precipitation back into the southeast again and elongated where they definitely don't need it, but you will be getting back more of the light to moderate and sometimes some heavier rains moving back into the mid-Atlantic. But what happens is on the backside with this initial cooler shot, you'll have a reinforcing shot of cooler air. So it definitely should open up the airways from Canada and allow some of those cooler anomalies to continue to dive southbound. So it's going to be feeling a kind of a welcome change. Once that cold front moves through, you're going to remain on the cool side through that 17th, and it should even build, right? Because we have the EPO continue to remain negative, and those cooler anomalies will really start to be felt across a good part of that central and eastern 2/3, and especially down in the southeast. It actually dives all the way to the coast, folks. So you're going to probably feel this cool front. Now, of course, we're going in that third week of March, so I don't think this is going to be cold by any of the stretch of imagination, but it is going to be cooler from what you would normally see for that third week of March. And even on the ensembles, guys, with that EPO continuing to remain negative, and even once we get into the 20th time frame, it continues to pull that colder air from Canada, right? The overall flow coming from the north, and will continue to pull those cooler anomalies even back into the 20th timing as we start officially heading into that first day of spring, which is the 19th. So yes, first day of spring should actually be somewhat cooler for a good part of the eastern and central and eastern 2/3 of the US. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. It is spring break next week. My kids are out of school, so the family and I will be taking a trip for about a week. So we'll be gone. I'll be gone on a family vacation. So I wanted to give you kind of an extended view on this update over the next 7 to 10 days. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and definitely I will be back in about a week from now to give you a full update when that occurs. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.